Okay, it looks like everyone that was in the waiting room has had a chance to connect to their audio. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Mandy. I use she and her pronouns. And I just want to first say thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule and your day to spend time with us at Amherst. I know that this is a really challenging time for everybody in lots of different ways. And I just really want to sincerely thank you so much for deciding to spend some of that time to learn more about who we are at Amherst College and to meet some of our students and have a chance to ask the questions that you have, the really amazing questions that you have. A lot of you submitted questions through our registration form. We got over 50 questions through the registration, so we're not going to be able to get to all of them, but I will be asking questions to our panelists throughout the next roughly 55 minutes or so. And I do also want to let you know that if you have questions that come up during the panel, you can private message me. Again, my name's Mandy, in the chat feature. And that's a great way to ensure that your question is added and that we try to address the concerns and questions that you have. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the panelists who are going to introduce themselves before we get started.
I can start. My name is Lea Morin. I am in my third year at Amherst College. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, which is where I am right now. My majors are Latinx, Latin American Studies, and Sociology. Sorry, I was just thinking about all the things I do on my tour, but this is not a tour. Outside of working in the Office of Admissions, I also work with one of our 5 resource centers on campus, which you may hear more about in the future. And I also work as a diversity outreach intern with the Office of Admissions. So that's super exciting. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
All right, I'm Elizabeth Sturley. I'm a senior. I use she, her pronouns. I am from Austin, Texas, so I'm just a little bit away from you. And I am an interdisciplinary major, so I created my own major, and I think we'll probably talk about that a little bit later. I'm also doing political science and also doing international relations. And in addition to being a tour guide as well, I am also on the women's varsity field hockey team, and I'm a peer advocate for sexual respect on campus.
I can go next. My name is Jiwoo Park, and I'm a senior at Amherst. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm from Denver, Colorado, which is where I am also. And at Amherst, I'm a neuroscience and anthropology double major, but I'm also on the pre-medical track. In addition to being a tour guide, I was also head of the volunteer EMT squad on campus. I was a DJ with our student radio, and I helped organize orientation for the past few years. So, yeah.
I can round out the seniors. My name is Brant. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm from Northern Illinois. And at Amherst, I'm a computer science major, a resident counselor, part of the wellness team, and a TA on occasion.
Hello, my name is EJ. I am a first year class of 2023. I am a prospective Black Studies and Biochem major from outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I am on the e-board for the Black Student Union, the Pride Alliance, and I am a member of the club volleyball team, African Caribbean Student Union, and I'm a student health educator.
Perfect, thank you all. If you did join the chat a little bit after we got started, I just want to let you know that if you do have questions that arise during this time, you can send those to me, to Mandy Hart on the chat feature on this Zoom call. So we're going to get started with all the questions that we had submitted beforehand. So for the panelists, what really stuck out to you that made you choose to come to Amherst?
I can start. I have a favorite story that I like to tell about this. and it involves my admitted students weekend. So I visited Amherst in the fall of my senior year and sat in on a class and really enjoyed the class, went up to the professor afterwards, talked to him a little bit about Amherst, but also the work that he was doing. And he was writing a book about Nazi war crimes and trials, and I was super interested in it. I fast forward 7 months. I am visiting for my admitted students weekend. I run into this professor in a Chinese restaurant in the town of Amherst, and I approach him and I say, "Oh, Professor Douglas, like, I'm sure you don't remember me, but," and he's like, "Wait a second, you're the girl who's really interested in the book I was writing." And so full circle now, I actually have his book right here next to me, and he is my thesis advisor writing about these very same issues. And so this just goes to show like how invested professors are in students' lives. And so he was so invested in me as a person even before I was a student of his.
So for me, I visited Amherst through Devo, which is a diversity open house, and which is what I get to work with now as a diversity outreach intern. And I didn't really have a lot of experience with the college process. I really didn't even believe that I got into schools once I actually did get into schools. But when I got to visit Amherst, I did so through that fly-in, which focuses on first generation and or low income students, which is what I am. So that was super awesome. I was like, wow, so the school is showing that they have an institutional commitment to supporting this group of students that I'm a part of. But what really stuck with me was Real Talk, which was I guess like a panel in which diversity outreach interns talk to prospective students. And that was the first time I had heard students really talk in a much more balanced way about the institution that they were at. So there were positives, there were negatives, there were things that they loved, there were things that they hated, and that really stuck with me. And once I got admitted to Amherst, I knew that was the place for me. And also the fact that the financial aid is so amazing for first generation and or low income students, and just like a very practical decision for me to make.
My story is remarkably similar to Liz's, in that in my admitted students week, I met with some of the computer science professors, but also a woman who was a senior at the time, and I got to talk to her, and she was really excited to tell me about Amherst. And fast forward 2 years later, she's working at Google and is giving a talk at Amherst. And I go up to her and I say like, "Oh, I don't know if you remember me, but you're a big reason I came to this school." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I remember talking to you." And I think it's just like what Liz was saying. It's the fact that people take genuine interest in you at Amherst. That's a big reason that why I ended up there, is because of that.
Another question that was asked relatively commonly is, how did you transition to a more rural area in Massachusetts, especially if you're not from a rural area?
I know personally, I definitely thought it was going to be a struggle because being from Charlotte, I'm used to noise all the time and always running into people. But at Amherst, what I truly enjoy is the fact that it is a tight knit community. So it may be in a rural area, but there are so many people from so many corners of the planet that you can talk to and interact with. And there are so many different colleges in the consortium as well that you can interact with, such as UMass down the street with 28,000 students, I believe. So it's a really, really, it may seem like it's a rural town, but it's actually really big, and I truly admire that.
And also for me, even if Amherst is in a rural area, I think the area is so beautiful and it's just absolutely so lovely. The just like when you're on campus and you're kind of around the area in the bird sanctuary or even just on the first year quad, you're just surrounded by this beautiful nature, all these big old oak trees just kind of like hovering over you, and it's so beautiful. And in addition, there are so many benefits to kind of living near farms. We have amazing ice cream everywhere around Amherst, so that's always a plus. We have a really good like cider donuts farm, like Atkins Farm, which has a lot of good treats too. So it's not all bad. It is rural, but I don't think that I've ever felt isolated or really in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and just off of Juwoo's point there's so much incredible nature, like so many hiking trips. We have an outing club that I joined my first year, and they do like zip lining, whitewater rafting trips. I did a snowshoeing trip, and being from Texas, I had never done that before. And so it gives you a chance to try a lot of new things and like adventure outside as well.
Yeah, another great question that we got, I'd love to hear from each of you on this actually, is what is one thing that you have learned about yourself during your time at Amherst?
I can talk about this. I love this question so much. I think something for me coming in my first year, I thought that I was grown, to put it lightly. And I really didn't think that Amherst was going to be a place for me to grow. I think when I was looking at college, I was like, okay, who am I going to be? Where am I going to be the best academic at? Where am I going to get the most opportunities? Where am I going to get the next level up kind of thing? And I didn't really think about the place as somewhere that me, myself, as an individual was going to be. And that's something really beautiful about Amherst is that I have grown a lot. From my time as a first year to now as a third year, I keep growing. And it's something that I also hear from so many different people, right? So I hear it from people who matriculate from high school to Amherst immediately, right? And they talk about how they grow. I hear it from transfer students who are coming from community college. I hear it from veteran students who are transferring in, and so many different people. And to me, that's super important because we're a community that is constantly growing and evolving. Um, and that's not something I really was able to think about when I was deciding where to go. And I'm glad that I did end up at Amherst. I'm glad that the money that they gave me made it such that I could come here, and find out that I love to grow and I love to be in a community of people who are also growing in so many different ways, academically and personally. And I really think that's a beautiful piece of our community.
To definitely bounce off of bounce off of the fact that before I came to Amherst, I thought that I was grown as well because I went to a public boarding school for 2 years beforehand. So I was like, wow, I have my life together, got into college, I know what I want to major in. And then when I got into my classes, I realized that maybe I want to take this Black Studies class. Like I thought I just wanted to major in STEM, and turns out that the professors here as well as the students, they're so engaging and so nourishing and welcoming. So now turns out like Black studies is like my primary, and I'm thinking about chemistry a little bit, but but it's just been a phenomenal experience growing with these people like mentioned before, and I'm so excited for my next couple years here.
I want to hop on that train too. My story is very similar to EJ's. I came into college thinking that I was going to be pre-med, neuroscience, or biology. I was like, STEM is my passion, science is it. And then my sophomore year, I was like, okay, I'm here for the open curriculum. I might as well just dip into the humanities and take medical anthropology because it has medicine in the title. And it turned out to be a really challenging class for sure. It was my first time really like being expected to read and write just to that level. But it totally changed the way that I thought about the world around me. I fell in love with anthropology, and now I'm kind of in the same boat. Like most of my classes this semester are anthropology, and I love neuroscience. I kept it as my double major, but if I like could have written a thesis, I would have written in anthropology. So I definitely learned that as much as I love science, I also love anthropology. I love reading and writing. And I'm really grateful that Amherst kind of like allowed me to explore both of those areas, which aren't mutually exclusive.
In a similar vein, I kind of learned to focus on pursuing the things that give me energy instead of the things that take energy from me. And so and I think the open curriculum at Amherst is a big part of how I learned that, because I knew I was doing computer science as I came in. I just was in love with computers my whole life, and so I was pretty set on that. But then at any other school, in any other program, that's what I'd be doing, and that's the only thing I'd be doing. But at Amherst, I got to take film classes, I took Black Studies classes, I took American Studies classes, I took all these things that expanded my boundaries. And I discovered a lot of things that actually bring a lot of joy and bring a lot of fulfillment to my life that's outside of the things that I kind of thought I would be doing. And so I got to explore all those things.
I think being a senior and especially having my time physically at Amherst cut short, I've had a little bit of time to reflect on this question, and it's a really hard and a beautiful question. And I really want to echo what everyone here has said. I got chills a couple times just hearing y'all's answers. And I think at the end of the day, the thing that I've learned most and grown and stretched myself the most has been about my own resilience. And I think that throughout my time, I've been challenged in a lot of different ways. Like, I've been really challenged in a lot of my classes in a really great way. I've learned to think in from new lenses, new perspectives. And like EJ and Brant was also echoing, like for me taking Black Studies classes, I was really challenged in a lot of those, and now that's part of my major and my thesis. But I was also challenged in ways that, at the time I wish I hadn't been challenged in those ways, but through the support of a lot of the different parts of the Amherst community, whether that's staff I got really, really close to, faculty I got really close to, and resource centers that I ended up using. And I came into Amherst not really knowing how to ask for help. And Amherst taught me that. And I think that's the most important lesson that anyone can learn in their lives.
Thank you for those amazing answers. That was really, really beautiful. A lot of you mentioned the academic exploration that you've done and switching majors and creating majors. So can you all kind of speak to how, what the process was like to either switch your major or to double major or to do an interdisciplinary major, or perhaps all three in Elizabeth's case?
I guess I can start. So I, just for context, for some background, in case you came in later or didn't necessarily know, but so I created my own major. So it's an interdisciplinary major. So I combined 3 already existing majors. So I combined law, jurisprudence, and social thought, Black studies, and history, and deemed it justice and human rights. And then I'm also doing political science as another major, and then also doing international relations as a certificate. And so, yeah, it was definitely a process. So Amherst requires that you have a declared major at the end of your sophomore year, but after that you can add things and all of that. And the other kind of really special part of that is you get an advisor for each of your majors. So I have approximately 6 advisors, which is great. And they've all helped me through the entire process of deciding on what to call things, deciding on how to write my thesis in this combined major. And just so people know, like, that's not a super typical thing for Amherst students to do. Like, creating your own major is not only like 1 to 2 students a year does it. So it's a pretty intensive process with a lot of like proposals, and you kind of have to like pitch your reasons for wanting to do that. It's definitely a time intensive process, but for me, it was really worthwhile because I'd taken advantage of the open curriculum. I realized that all of my classes were in this kind of human rights vein, but they were falling under a lot of different disciplines. So that's kind of my spiel on that. Other people can talk more about like double majoring or other things as well.
Yeah, no, I can talk more about the double majoring. Honestly, the interdisciplinary major thing is so cool. So mad props to you for doing that. Yeah, so like I mentioned before, I started out very neuro. Most of my classes were um, all science-based, like intro to chemistry, intro to bio, whatever. And then I happened to take anthropology my sophomore year. So like I had already taken up a lot of my courses during science stuff. But then because of the open curriculum, it's so easy to double or triple major here at Amherst. So it's like, even in my sophomore year, I didn't decide that I wanted to double major in anthropology until like literally the last day of sophomore year. But it's very possible because just in terms of requirements when you graduate, academically, the only two things that you need to do essentially are one, take a first year seminar class, which is what you take your first semester just to kind of acclimate you to the reading and writing culture of Amherst. And then the second is you just need to fulfill the requirements for at least one major. And usually those requirements are about 8 to 12 courses. But beyond that, it's literally just all you and whatever you want to do. So that academic freedom definitely lets you consider double majors, or you can switch majors easy. I don't want to say easily, but not without too much of a hassle. So you definitely get that freedom through the open curriculum.
A few of you mentioned all of the activities and extracurriculars that you're involved in. So we had a couple questions about that. One question is, how do you balance all of your commitments on campus? And kind of secondary to that, how did you choose what kinds of things you really wanted to be involved in?
I can start. So during my second year at Amherst, I had 5 jobs. And I was also like involved with La Causa, which is our Latinx affinity group on campus. Definitely don't recommend for anybody. It was definitely very stressful. But one thing I would say is that there is a lot of flexibility from our professors to what you're involved in. So if you're going through something, there's definitely a lot of support for that. I personally didn't go through anything while I had 5 jobs, thankfully. Um, but it really is about finding what you're passionate about, right? And there, I don't think there's any way like for me to give you streamlined advice about what that means for you. But for me personally, it came down to, am I getting paid for this? All these hours I'm spending, and also, does this work make me really, really excited? And being a diversity outreach intern with the Office of Admissions is work that is really, really meaningful to me. Because I didn't get that opportunity to talk to people before I decided where I was going and that kind of stuff, except for like Devo, which was with Amherst. But it's really just about finding what you're happy doing, right? And that can be working with Office of Admissions. It can be anything. And part of the reason why I had 5 jobs on campus was because it's so easy to find things to do at Amherst. It 100% is. And I assure you that pretty much everybody is finding something to do on campus. So you will learn what is really important to you. And I think that's a process you'll go through regardless of if you're at Amherst or if you're anywhere else.
Yeah, and I think an important part of figuring out what is important to you is not being afraid of, letting go of the things that aren't, fulfilling you, and being honest with yourself about that. And so I found like the things I really love to do in my senior year, and that's just like I committed myself to like doing that because it made me happy, even if I had some work to do. I joined the rock climbing team and started going to practices for that because it brought me a fulfillment that, even though it took time, and that's kind of a scarce resource sometimes, the joy it brought me, kind of filled me back up and brought me back.
And I'll say one of my favorite events of the whole year literally happens like day 2 of school, but we have a huge club fair. And so it takes over the first year quad. And so many people from different clubs are out there with tables, and most of them have like candy, but it normally ends up like melting because it's in August or the beginning of September. And I know for me, my first year, and actually I went all of my years, even when I wasn't just starting, and I just signed up for anything that interested me. And so I ended up on so many email lists, and like Brant said, you kind of have to cut down and as you find what you're passionate about, and maybe add something new as well. But I know I started out as getting all my bases covered, and so then they would send emails about when meetings were, and I would show up to a lot of them at the beginning and then kind of parse it down. But in terms of kind of balancing things, like I'm also an athlete, so that takes a few hours every day of when I'm in season. And I would say honestly that I normally do better in other aspects of my life, like academically and socially and everything, while I'm in season, because it allows for more like structure and time management. So I'm actually a person that kind of thrives off of that. And like other people are saying, like professors and staff members and like bosses are all very, very accommodating and willing to work with you to make that schedule work.
Yeah, we actually had quite a few questions about the first year experience. So kind of speaking of the club fair, can you all talk about what your experience was like your first year in your residence hall, and just that first year experience that you had at Amherst?
Okay, for the first year, jumping into it, you of course have your orientation schedule, and you get acclimated to the schedule. You get acclimated to the policies that the campus have. But one thing that I think is really important about the first year experience is that we have a leap/orientation trip that you go on when you first get here. And I can generally say I met a good chunk of my friends on this trip. And it's not like, oh, you go on this trip and you do, I don't know, you discuss the Amherst experience. It's more so like you go on these trips, you do activities, you learn about people, you gaze up at the stars and just talk about a lot of different things. So that is definitely a big chunk of my experience. And I know transitioning onto the quad is big as well, because it feels like a huge community of just students from all over the place. And so that was very crucial to me. And with my dorm building that I stayed in, it was a little bit smaller than Charles Pratt, which is the biggest dormitory that we have on the freshman quad. But I truly enjoyed it. It felt like a family atmosphere. We were having movie nights steadily. We would just always go down on the downtown Amherst and go out and eat and have a bunch of different activities that we do. So my first year experience was actually amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
So we got another question that I really, really love that I'd love to ask you guys, which is, what do you do when campus starts to feel a little too small?
Go abroad. That's definitely something you can do. Which, like, half joking, half not. I know for some people, like, whatever majors you're interested in, it may not be easy for you to go abroad. Like, I know a friend who double majored in Euro and SWAG, which is sexuality, women, and gender studies, was not able to go abroad, but if you can, definitely do. And I'm, like I mentioned before, I'm first generation and low income. So, like, one, the prospect of going to college was like, that's never happening. And then two, going abroad was like, that's also never happening, but I did both. Because Amherst has really generous financial aid, and that transfers over to when you're going abroad. So I was able to go and, like, get out, which is amazing. But there's also other opportunities where you don't have to go abroad if that's not something you can do. Also, if that's not something you want to do. We have the 5 college consortium, so you can take classes in any of the other 4 colleges within that consortium. I personally have never done that, so if anyone else has, please talk about that. But also, like we are in a really beautiful place, as a lot of people have already mentioned. So, like, going out for a walk in town, or like getting in a car with your friends. After your first year, you can have a car on campus. Getting in a car, going somewhere, that's also something. We're near Holyoke, we're near Springfield. You can drive to Boston, you can take a bus to New York, you can do all these different things. And Amherst can feel small, but there are just so many different things you can do to make it feel a lot bigger.
And I'll say one thing about abroad. So a fun fact, Brant and I were actually together in Copenhagen. And I had like known him and one of the other women who was also abroad in Copenhagen. Like we knew each other. We certainly like said hi. But then actually during my time abroad, I got really, really close. These people who I had been going to school with for 2.5 years and had not really known. And so in a way, like abroad both is a time to get out and explore and meet new people, but also kind of a reminder that Amherst isn't as small as we sometimes think, and that I had to go across the world to become, best friends with someone actually reminded me to really seek out other spaces at Amherst where I could potentially meet people that I wouldn't necessarily be coming in contact with in my normal social circles.
Yeah, just like any college campus, Amherst can turn into a bubble if you stay on campus, physically on the campus for too long. But it's so easy to burst just by going into town or just by getting on the bus and going to Hampshire, going to UMass, going to Flavors. There are all these ways to burst that bubble. And to be honest, sometimes I forget to. I get so wrapped up that I just kind of stay on campus, and then the one night my friends and I go out to dinner is like really rejuvenating.
I also want to second that. It's super easy just to like grab a meal off campus and kind of get that break. I really want to vouch for Northampton, which is where Smith College is. It's a 40-minute bus ride away that's free for all college students, and it's like a 20-minute car ride. The brunch places in Northampton are absolutely first rate. They're so good. So even just like on a Saturday or Sunday morning, just like taking a few hours just to go to brunch with your friends, literally, it definitely solves the problem for sure.
And I would also like to add on to the fact that we do have programs called AC After Dark that will do not only activities on campus, but they'll take kids off of campus. So I know for a fact that one day in the Daily Mammoth, which is like the email we get every day, they said, there are free Six Flags tickets to whoever wants to come. And I know me and my friends caught it a day late, so we were like, but it was a really, really, it's really, really cool to have those experiences on campus to get you off even if you don't have a car on campus. So yeah.
So one question that we got a couple times was, if you could change one thing about Amherst, what would it be?
That's a good one. There's full transparency. There is something called the Amherst awkward, which is when two people who, this is what Liz was getting at. You kind of know each other, you kind of don't. You maybe say hi, you probably just look at the ground and walk past each other, which, as Liz said, like got broken because we made the effort, or like we got put into this other circumstance. And so the one thing I would change is if you come to Amherst, break that cycle, wave to people. They'll never be upset to say hi. So
I'll just say when I first got to Amherst, so like I said, so I'm from Texas and we smile and talk to strangers and everything. I know my other people can relate. And for me, that was actually something that's not specific, but just in general in the Northeast, something I was a little bit taken aback with at the beginning. I was like smiling and waving to people, and someone came up to me, they're like, do you know him? And I was like, no, like, and so yeah, I would definitely echo that and just say like embrace it. Like I definitely got some weird looks at the beginning, but that's also how, like, I would say just with the other, I'm not very good at counting, the other 4 panelists that are here, like I know each of them from like saying hi from different activities like we do on campus and stuff, and I'm definitely the type to just like dive in and like say hi, and so I would definitely echo what Brant just said.
I think a little bit different is, as y'all may know, Amherst has really exceptional diversity on so many fronts. And I really love like being at Amherst because, we talk about how tiny it is, but there are really so many people from so many places, like EJ said. But I think something that I've been able to see by going abroad and being at another institution, and visiting other institutions in the United States, for conferences and that kind of stuff, is that we have a great place, but I think what needs to happen is that institutional support needs to catch up to the diversity that we have. And you can say that of any institution, but I think what Amherst has shown is that they have the capability to change the culture of elitism, of racism, of any of the isms on campus. But I think that Amherst needs to more consistently do it versus in a reactionary way. Which I think is super important. I don't think that every institutional change that we make should be born out of student activism. I think that the institution should be constantly evolving to better support all of the students that we're admitting, because the institution has changed so much from 1821, and it needs to keep changing, which is super important. And I would still say that Amherst is doing that work to change, but I would like it to be a little less reactionary.
And when it comes to institutional support, one of the questions that we got that I really loved was just about the financial aid piece. So the question was really for students who are in upper levels, so have gone through the reapplication process, did you find that your financial aid was relatively stable, or did you ever experience some kind of setback where Amherst College didn't feel like it was meeting your financial needs?
I can start. I definitely, well, one of the big reasons why I chose Amherst was also their financial aid package was just hands down the most generous, which was something that I was really grateful for. And what I'm even more grateful for is that in my time at Amherst, that financial support, among other forms of support, really didn't waver or change drastically to the extent that I was like caught off guard or surprised or disappointed. For example, during my summers, I was hoping to do clinical research just in different cities beyond Amherst, just to get that research experience in for pre-med reasons and stuff like that. And so when I got my internships, like in New Haven and Boston, in 2 different summers, I applied to the summer internship funding that Amherst does through the Center for Community Engagement. And both summers, they gave me a stipend. I know it was like a generous stipend both years. There is no limit to how many times you can apply for that stipend or how much you can apply for, you just do. And most people that apply do get that funding. And because of that, I was able to take those internships, which were unpaid, like a lot of pre-med undergrad internships are. And I was able to do research and pay rent and buy groceries and have fun and go out and do all the things that I wanted to 2 summers in a row. So I've been really thankful about that.
What advice would you give to someone who is uncertain right now about where they want to enroll? And what advice might you have for anyone who is about to enter their first year of college?
I would definitely like to expound upon the fact that at Amherst, with the fact that we are a smaller campus and we do not have any grad students on that campus, that think about whether you want like a hands-on experience and one-on-one with your professors, because usually before you go into college, I know with me, I was like, big university, rah, 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 like I was so excited, but and then I generally thought about it and I was like, when it comes to my studies, I want to be able to have that one-on-one experience. I want to be able to have research experiences at my fingertips. So definitely think about that aspect of it and think about if you're unsure about what you want to do, then Amherst is definitely the place for you with our open curriculum as well. And with these professors guiding you, it's a really, really good opportunity. So I would definitely think about that.
One of the things that I thought about a lot when I was deciding where to go, and kind of like EJ, I was deciding between like some very different types of schools. And I thought a lot about the school itself, but also about the person I would be at a particular school and the people who I would come in contact with. And so I opted for Amherst for this diverse class that we're talking about. And even though we obviously have a long way to go with kind of the inclusion and institutional support side of that, like it is something really special that you know, I'm not around a ton of people that look like me all the time. And at times you have to seek that out yourself, even at Amherst. But that was something that was really important to me. And also I thought about kind of my final choices and thought about who I would be at each of these institutions. And I decided I liked the person that I was best at Amherst. And whether or not you come to that same conclusion, but that's something I thought about. And thinking back to kind of our answers about what we learned through our time at Amherst and kind of what institutions may push you to do that is a really important and interesting way to think about it.
So another topic that we got quite a few questions on was just the workload of the academics at Amherst. So can any of you speak to what that workload was like from your transition to from high school to Amherst, and what that workload has been like over time as you've been a student?
Okay, I know I know for me personally, my high school curriculum was very, very rigorous and I had a lot I needed to do. And coming to Amherst, I believe I would say it is definitely rigor. Like you're gonna come here and you're going to have courses that you've never experienced before and you're going to have to study. But with the professors and the fellows in the different departments, they're willing to work with you one-on-one, and the professors have office hours. I know for my math 121 class, my Wednesdays are fully dedicated to homework, and so I will go to my office hour on Wednesday and she will literally be over my shoulder helping me if I have any questions, my professor. So it's just the course load. I would definitely say it's rigorous, but it's definitely doable, and it's you're able to balance all of your extracurriculars with it, and so it's not too stressful.
Yeah, I would completely second that. And so what I'd say is, like, professors so available, the TAs so available, the staff so available, and also students are available to one another. Um, there's not this competition at Amherst. Everyone is in this together, and I've always had experiences where my friends or people in my classes have always been willing to work together to help me when I needed it. And I'm really thankful for that kind of environment.
Another common question that we got about academics was, can some of you talk about your favorite class that you've been in on campus and something that you took away from it?
I can start. This just like is the first one that came into my head. It's not like my favorite one by far or anything like that. I've taken so many amazing classes here, but last semester I was in this class called EAT with an exclamation mark at the end. And this class was actually a cross between like anthropology and also museum curatorial studies. So it was co-taught by two instructors. One was a professor in anthropology, and she focuses on food studies. But then the other instructor was actually the head educator at the Mead Art Museum. And so it was really cool. Throughout the whole entire semester, we were kind of exploring food, the networks of food, how food gets to our plates, where it starts, where it ends, all of the pieces that kind of are in between that. And so we explored that through doing readings. Some weeks, like, we just, did our theory readings and talked about it, like a lot of discussion courses. But then in the other half of the course, we went to the Mead. We actually got up close and personal with like the actual pieces of art. And we did that all to kind of curate this exhibit, which is now on display at the museum until July, actually. And we kind of showcased what we learned through this exhibit. We chose the color of the paint on the walls, like we chose the font of all of the lettering. Like, it was such an interactive process, and it was awesome just because we got to work so closely with the two professors. They also took us on a field trip to New York City. It was like completely paid. we went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We also went to the Brooklyn Museum of Food and Drink. Our professors bought us shaved ice like after the museum visits. So classes at Amherst can be just so fun and interactive and just like, but also very meaningful and educational at the same time.
Yeah, my favorite class that jumped to mind was Intro to Black Studies, which I took my first year. And the reason that sticks with me so much is because that really taught me what it means to be a scholar, and like how being so invested and loving the topic you're writing about can affect how you learn about it and how you write about it. And like when you actually take the time to read the book, right, and like and study the material and work with your professor, talk with your classmates. I mean, that definitely changed the trajectory of my Amherst career for sure.
Yeah, just to tie together what Brent and Jiwoo said, I've actually taken 3 classes with the professor Jiwoo took a class with. And like that professor actually started me on my path to be a Latinx and Latin American studies major. Like when I came into college, I was like, I will never be like an ethnic studies major because it's like that is not employable. Like all of these different things, like all of these critiques you can hear about ethnic studies as a whole. But I had my first year seminar with that professor and I fell in love. And that was the first time I heard different narratives about people like me. And I really I learned different ways to think. And that has happened in every single class I've taken with the same professor G was talking about, and also just like in general at Amherst. Because it's not just reading text, right? We go to like museum visits. I've gone to museum visits in New York. I went to the Brooklyn Museum. And like we also just get to have material things come out of what we're doing. Even now, like in one of the classes I'm taking with a different professor, initially we were supposed to do a documentary about Amherst Latinx lives. But now it's turned into just like curating interviews with Latinx peoples who are associated with Amherst. So that's a part of our archives at the college. To get those different stories, those different narratives, and those different ways of thinking, like, you know, out there and giving them a bigger voice than what I experienced prior to coming to Amherst.
I'll say my favorite, or not, again, like Judy said, like not far and away my favorite, but just the one that came to mind was a class I took. It was a super interdisciplinary class, and which I guess fits in with me, but my friends joke just hearing the title there and like the cross listing, they're like, that is the most Amherst class ever. Is race, sex, and gender in the U.S. military, and it was cross-listed with Black Studies, Sexuality, Women's and Gender Studies, and counted towards international relations. So, and it was with a new professor, and just came in, and it was not a class that I needed to take for any of my various majors and things. I had already like fulfilled that requirement. So I was just taking it because I really just wanted to learn, and it was actually it was an extra class I was taking that semester just because I was so interested in it and really knew very, very little going into it. I was one of those people that kind of came into Amherst knowing what I wanted to study and pretty much stuck with it, but this was something where it was in the vein of what I wanted to study, but something really new. And I just think I learned more in that class than I did in any other class that was more related to what I ended up writing my thesis on or things like that. So I just learned so much in that class.
So another common theme was asking about the food. So can you guys speak to your experience in the dining hall at Amherst? Maybe talk about val sitting, things that make you probably miss being on campus. But what's the food like? What's the eating experience like at Amherst?
I know for me as a vegetarian at my last school, since it was a publicly funded school, being a vegetarian at that school was very, very hard. And so coming to Amherst, I would say being a vegetarian is easy. They have a whole salad bar that you can get, and most of the meals that they have and they provide, they have a vegetarian / lighter side option. So usually when I go in, sometimes you'll find myself making a like rice with sesame seeds and a whole bunch of different vegetables, and I cook it at a wok station. And I truly, I love the food here. I'm not sure how what everybody thinks about the food here, but I know personally I love the food because being vegetarian, it's not very accessible.
I think my fellow seniors might agree. I think Valentine Hall, which is the dining hall on campus, has like it just improved exponentially like during our time here. And I honestly, as a senior, like take this with a grain of salt. I'm definitely not the pickiest eater, but I do love the food here. I do think that the administration at Val and the chefs there have definitely started putting a lot more effort into the recipes that they're cooking. They want things to be fresh and healthy for the students. So I really appreciate that. And like EJ was saying, there is a lot of variety every day. So you do have options. And if you ever get tired of Val, the restaurants in town are absolutely amazing. Miss Saigon for pho is my favorite, but there are so many good ones there. In terms of Val as an environment, I was a chronic Val sitter, which means it's an actual term. It means that you essentially stay inside Valentine Hall for hours at a time. You sit there with your friends, you do your homework, you eat, do your homework again, eat again, and you just kind of stay there for a stretch of time. But it's so nice. The upstairs area, the sunlight just kind of filters in. It's warm, it's cozy. There's coffee and tea just whenever you want it. And you will find a good group of fellow Val sitters every day. So that was also a favorite part of my Amherst experience.
I will say I miss Val so much right now. I like you. I'm a huge Val sitter. People joke I hold office hours in Val because it'll just be tables worth of people coming through. But I love it. And also, I'll echo too. Like I think it's kind of, I don't know, like a cool thing to like complain about food on your college campus, but like genuinely, I believe that like people who are doing that are not coming from a place where they understand like how lucky we are to have like fresh local vegetables, fresh fruit, like beets handpicked by our peers and like Farmer Pete, who like was a person on our campus. We have like a farm on campus, and like the amount of work and incredible like variety that goes into the planning and prepping and delivery of the dining hall, I could not speak more highly of. I think obviously like being there for 4 years, like there are things that get repetitive, but like Julie said, like it's changed every year and we have gotten a lot of really cool things and we've seen things cycled through. And like I personally could not speak more highly of Val and of Valentine's staff. I am on a first name basis with every single one of the workers there, and they come in and they say hi to me by name. And one of them knows like my favorite night is pierogi night, and she helped me get a record, and I ate 21 pierogies in approximately 30 minutes just a couple weeks ago. But they all know you by name, and like it's just so special, and it's my favorite place on campus.
So we're coming up on our time here. So I just want to ask the panelists if you have any additional elements of advice or takeaways that you'd like to express to these admitted students who've joined us today.
I'll say very quickly, I think y'all are probably looking at a lot of amazing options, but just to remember, look at a place that you think you'll belong at and also that you'll own, because belonging is important, but it's more important to feel like you will own that place one day. So definitely look at that. And also, if none of your interests or anything was covered that you wanted covered, I know there's still tour guides who are working, there's still diversity outreach interns who are working, so you can find us on Amherst website. So definitely do that if you would like to.
Yeah, I think that's a great message to end on. And I do want to echo what Leah just said, which is that there's a number of ways to continue connecting with us at Amherst. They're all on your admitted student status portal. There's a big button that says connect to Amherst. That's how you registered for this, chat. There's going to be an online chat that's not a video chat on Wednesday, which is another great place to get your questions answered. You can also find email addresses of current students to ask those questions that you had. I know we weren't able to get to all of the questions that everybody had, and I apologize for that, but if you do want to follow up on that admitted student status portal where it says connect to Amherst, you can find email addresses of current Amherst students, as well as the links to register for our online chats. And we'll also have new opportunities that we just posted today that are called Zoom into Amherst. And they're actually Zoom chats as well, but instead of being muted, it'll be everyone talking to each other, and there won't be any staff people present. It'll just be current Amherst students and you all admitted students. So those are all great opportunities to connect with us at Amherst. I thank you so much for your time. Thank you to the panelists, and just appreciate again that you've chosen to spend your time with us. And I hope everyone stays well.